Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool are taking on Spurs at Wembley this weekend in what is a very exciting and, for me personally, also a very interesting tie, because while you've got the main sort of plot, if you will, of whether or not Liverpool are going to beat Spurs, and that is an incredibly exciting one. Obviously Spurs are a very close rival for Liverpool in that sort of the Big Six rivalry and who's going to get into the top four and everything. But also there are a lot of other subplots, if you will, to this game, which I think will make it very interesting indeed. And the first one for me is that whether or not Liverpool can prove that the Maribor game wasn't just a fluke, because obviously we were hugely chuffed after that game. 7-0, our biggest ever European away win and equaling the record for the biggest ever away win in European competition since the Champions League started. But there is a slight worry that maybe that result was simply because it was just Maribor, or because Maribor performed really poorly and Liverpool were just having a very good day. So Liverpool have got an opportunity here now against some much more superior opposition. No disrespect to Maribor, but Spurs and Maribor are just completely different ballparks in terms of quality. So Liverpool have got the chance here to prove that they didn't just get that result because they were playing against a rubbish team, and they are actually in a very good patch of form after what was a very iffy patch all the way through September. And also this is a chance for the Liverpool team to prove that they have improved defensively, because obviously since the international break we've had back-to-back clean sheets, and there's been a suggestion that maybe Liverpool have sorted themselves out a little bit. I mean, players like Joe Gomez performed brilliantly in the game against Manchester United. Alberto Moreno's been putting in some fantastic performances. Both Lovren and Matip have looked a lot more solid defensively. They don't look nervous. They don't look like they're going to be a bit as error-prone as they have been over the course of September. And this is a real opportunity for Liverpool to prove that that was not just because of the circumstances they were under. Because obviously against Manchester United, Man U didn't really seem interested in scoring at all, and Romelu Lukaku had a terrible game, so it wasn't necessarily that difficult for Liverpool to keep a clean sheet there. And then Maribor just didn't really threaten at any point. That game was incredibly one-sided, and this is going to be a game where Liverpool will really get tested defensively. Spurs, you know, they've got players like Harry Kane, who's in fantastic form, and obviously while he scores almost as many goals as the Romelu Lukaku, they're sort of equal in that level of their playing style. Harry Kane does a lot more to help out the team in terms of overall play, so he will be very difficult for Liverpool to handle, and it will be interesting to see whether we handle him well. They've obviously got players like Christian Eriksen. Dele Alli's not in great form at the moment, but he's still a high quality footballer as well, so it'll be very interesting to see how Liverpool handle that, and hopefully we can prove that we have made improvements defensively. And also this is a big chance for Liverpool to show that their big game mentality is still just as good as it was last season, because so far this season we've played 3 games against the so-called Big Six. We beat Arsenal, we absolutely thrashed them, we then got absolutely thrashed by Manchester City, and then we drew with Manchester United. So far this season there's a slight suggestion that maybe Liverpool aren't as good going into these big matches against their big rivals as they were last season, where by and large they'd either win, they'd always play brilliantly, and if they didn't win then they'd get a draw that by and large they tend to actually deserve to win the match. And that hasn't necessarily been the case so far this season. So this match against Spurs, who, as I said, they're a very close rival for us, we're sort of pretty much on an equal footing with Spurs, I think it's safe to say. It'll be very interesting to see whether Liverpool can prove that they've still got what it takes for the big games. So with regards to team news, there's not really that much going on in terms of players who've got injured or players who are coming back from injury. Jurgen Klopp mentioned Sadio Mane in his press conference today and said that he is sort of getting closer and closer in terms of rehab. He's doing a bit of indoor work now, but he's certainly nowhere near being back to first team fitness, so obviously he's not going to play in this game. He mentioned that a few players were carrying some slight knocks after the Maribor game, and he did give the players the day off after that game, and it was only today that they've gone back to actual first team training. But hopefully that means that those players will have had the adequate rest and that they will be fine for this game. So as for how we're actually going to line up, I think obviously it's Mignolet in goal. He's the Premier League goalkeeper at the moment. He's been playing incredibly well, I think, so far this season. He's been putting in some pretty good performances, so no real surprise there. I think at right back it's going to be Joe Gomez. Obviously Alexander-Arnold, he played in the week, so I think Liverpool are going to go back to that rotational policy they have at right back. And also I think Joe Gomez suits this game a little bit better. Obviously he's the more defensive of the two, and Liverpool are going to come under a lot of pressure with the way that Spurs attack and the quality that they've got at that end of the pitch, so that makes sense. I think Joe Gomez will start this game. The centre-backs, it's going to be Lovren and Matip. I think it's safe to say I don't see why Liverpool would rotate there. Lovren and Matip have obviously performed well so far this season. It'll be interesting to see how they handle Harry Kane, because Lovren was the one who was sort of given the responsibility of handling Lukaku against Man United. He did that very well, but obviously Harry Kane is a completely different beast to Lukaku, so it will be interesting to see, and I'm hoping that Lovren handles that battle very well, because when it comes to individual battles with a striker, he's a bit iffy. Sometimes he does really well, like he did against Lukaku. Sometimes he does awfully, like he always does against Christian Benteke against Crystal Palace. So it'll be an interesting one to see there. And then left back, I think it's almost definitely going to be Alberto Moreno, because he has been fantastic so far this season. He's just been getting better and better. And for the... Oh my God, I'm so out of focus. Didn't realise that. Hang on. Hello. I'm sorry about this. My camera's doing this all the time now. Am I back? I think I'm back. But yeah, Alberto Moreno's just been going strength to strength. He's put in some fantastic performances in his last few games. He's really come on a lot. And while there is always a shout for Andy Robertson, I think he'll probably get saved for the game against Huddersfield at home next weekend. I think that suits him a little bit more. Throwing him in against Spurs will be throwing him in at the deep end a little bit too much, I think. So onto the midfield. This is the one where there is a lot of debate about who's going to start for Liverpool, because obviously Henderson was probably going to come back into the side, but Milner put in a great performance against Maribor in midweek. But with the way that Jurgen Klopp spoke about the two of them in his press conference today, he spoke about Henderson in a way that suggested that he'd just been rested for the game against Maribor, and it wasn't anything to do with like dropping him because of his performances or anything like that. And when he talked about Milner, it sounded very much like he was talking about Milner as a squad player. He was saying like, it's great to have those players available when we need them, rather than saying, you know, Milner put in a great performance and he's really laid down a marker for the first team. So I think the midfield is going to be Jordan Henderson in the number 6 role, and then Emre Can and Jorginho Wijnaldum either side of him. And then the front three kind of picks itself at the moment. It's going to be Coutinho, it's going to be Firmino, and it's going to be Mo Salah, I think. Obviously, there is always that shout of whether you could put Coutinho in the midfield role and then maybe have Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in that wing role on the left wing. Oxlade-Chamberlain's performances have kind of picked up a little bit since the international break. He had a good cameo against Manchester United where he's very direct, very purposeful, and then he got his goal against Maribor in midweek. But I think with the quality that Spurs have in midfield, and also the physical strength they have with players like Wanyama and Moussa Dembele, I think if you put Coutinho in that midfield role, there's a chance that he might get overrun a little bit and he might not be able to impose himself, and it could mean that Spurs win that midfield battle and control the game a little bit more than we'd like. So I think you want the physical presence of players like Jorginho Wijnaldum and Emre Can in the centre of the park, and then put Phil Coutinho a little bit further up in the pitch where he might have a little bit more space to create and help out the team. So taking a look at Spurs then, obviously this game is being played at Wembley, and a lot has been made of so far this season of the so-called Wembley curse that I think a lot of people are expecting. And there's been a suggestion recently that Spurs are maybe finding their feet at the National Stadium a little bit more. They had a fantastic result against Spurs in the Champions League about a month back, and then they got their first league win of the season at Wembley against Bournemouth last time out. So they're doing a little bit better, but obviously the game against Bournemouth, it was a narrow win. They only won the game 1-0. They've yet to really blow away a team in domestic competition at Wembley so far, but there is a suggestion that maybe they've improved and they're perhaps over the hump a little bit. And obviously, no matter where they're playing, Spurs are an absolutely excellent team. I mean, I mentioned Harry Kane earlier and how much he helps out the team, as well as just contributing a hell of a lot of goals, and I think he will be a handful for Liverpool in this game. And apart from him, Spurs have got some fantastic other players as well. Like I said, I mentioned Eriksen, Dele Alli. You've got players like Son as well, who I think is actually a really good player and is really underrated and could end up being a handful for Liverpool as well in this game if he starts. So this will be a tough match no matter what for Liverpool. However, despite that, I still think Liverpool can win this game. I think we've got every chance of doing so, and while I mentioned that our big game mentality has been slightly iffy so far this season, I'd still expect us to bring our A game for this match. So here are my 3 reasons why I think Liverpool will beat Spurs. First of all, the fact that this is a home game for Spurs and that they are such an attackingly brilliant team means that I think Liverpool will get a fair few opportunities on the counter-attack during this game. And obviously a lot of that comes down to whether or not we can defend well, because if we defend poorly, then Spurs are just going to score a lot of goals. But if Liverpool defend well, if they do contain the attacking threat that Spurs have got, then they will get a lot of opportunities, I think, to get further up the pitch and get those goals. And as we all know, counter-attacking and counter-pressing is actually a huge strength of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, and one of the reasons why we perform so well in the big games. I mean, Man City normally, obviously not the case this season, but normally they're a very good opponent for us to face because they play a high defensive line and they leave a lot of space in and around the back. attack, and hopefully Spurs, with it being at home and with it being at Wembley as well, which is a massive pitch and should give Liverpool a lot of space, should mean that we have a lot of opportunities on the counter-attack. And hopefully, given that we started looking like we were maybe taking our chances a lot more against Maribor, hopefully we can do that again against Spurs, take our chances on the counter-attack, and that should help us win the game. And secondly, speaking of counter-attacking, I think Mo Salah is going to be absolutely huge for Liverpool in this game. I mean, if I had to pick someone who I think is going to be our key man, it would be him, because with the amount of opportunities that I think we'll get on the counter-attack, with the amount of space that he'll have to run in and around the Spurs players as well, I think that he could just be hugely influential for Liverpool in this game. I mean, you look at the game against Arsenal where he had that opportunity on the counter-attack, he absolutely burst away and got a goal, and he had a lot of other opportunities in that game as well. I just think he's going to be absolutely massive for us, and obviously he had a fantastic game against Maribor in midweek as well, so he is in form. And I think the fact that Jurgen Klopp brought him off about 55 minutes into the match, which is way earlier than Jurgen Klopp normally makes his substitutions, suggests that Klopp also sees him as being a hugely important figure for us in this match. And finally, I think the fact that we are playing at Wembley should hopefully give Liverpool a little bit more of a boost going into this game, because Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp have both got pretty poor records at Wembley in recent history. I mean, Jurgen Klopp, he's lost both of his games there, the Champions League final in 2013 and the Capital One Cup final with Liverpool. Liverpool have lost their last 3 games at Wembley Stadium as well, so we've got a little bit of a point to prove going into this game. And I just think the fact that we're playing in such a huge stadium and such an iconic stadium should fire up the players a little bit more. I mean, it's something that was mentioned a lot before the season and something that a lot of people said Spurs would have to look out for. The fact that obviously Spurs are playing every other week at Wembley, and therefore it wouldn't hold the same significance as maybe teams like Burnley, who came to Wembley, played brilliantly and got a draw, because it's the only game they'll play this season, we presume, at the National Stadium. And that's kind of the same for Liverpool. And even though it will be a hostile environment, because it's not sort of 50-50 crowds, it's very much a home crowd for Spurs. And like a lot has been made about the fact that it's not the same atmosphere as White Hart Lane. It's not as intimidating as the atmosphere used to be when you played away to Spurs. The fact that you're playing in such a huge stadium with such a hostile atmosphere may have an influence on our players, but I'm just hoping that with that big game mentality coming through, it'll only serve to fire up those Liverpool players and help them get a result. So that's all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll be back very shortly with the FIFA 18 predictor for this match, the first FIFA predictor on this channel played on the brand new FIFA, so do stay tuned for that as well. Apart from that, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well, and I'll see you very shortly for the FIFA predictor. And don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well. Bye for now.